On a cold morning in Newark, a struggling black father stops at a grocery store counting every dollar in his nearly empty wallet. As he heads to his truck, he spots a little girl sitting alone on the curb, her face strewn with tears. He knows getting involved could mean trouble. People like him don't always get the benefit of the doubt, but as she looks up at him scared and lost, he makes a choice. What he doesn't know is that this small act of kindness will set off a chain of events that could change his life forever. Marcus Carr sat on the edge of his worn-out couch, his head resting in his hands as the first rays of morning light slipped through the cracked blinds of his tiny apartment. The air was thick with the faint smell of old leather and motor oil, a scent that used to mean security back when he had a real job, back when he was somebody. 3 years at Henderson's Auto Repair had given him purpose, but when the shop went under, so did his stability. Now, he scraped by doing whatever work he could find. Hauling boxes at the docks, fixing up busted air conditioners, cleaning out garages for people who barely acknowledged his presence. The money was never enough. The bills stacked up faster than he could pay them, and the landlord's friendly reminders were getting less friendly by the day. 2 months behind one rent, one more missed payment, and he and his son Jordan would be out on the street. The apartment itself was a testament to struggle. The peeling wallpaper, the faint scent of mildew, the dim overhead light that flickered when the wind blew too hard outside. This wasn't the home Marcus had imagined for his son. Jordan deserved more than this, deserved a backyard to play in, a warm bed that didn't creak every time he rolled over, a fridge that wasn't almost always empty, but reality didn't give a damn about what a man deserved. It only cared about what he could afford. And right now, Marcus could barely afford a loaf of bread. With a heavy sigh, he pushed himself up and walked over to the small kitchenette. The fridge hung softly, its contents depressingly bare: a half-empty carton of milk, a few slices of bread, a jar of peanut butter that was more air than spread. He grabbed the bread and a butter knife, spreading the peanut butter as thinly as possible, stretching it the way he wished he could stretch his last few dollars. Jordan, he called, his voice gentle but firm. Breakfast, buddy. A few seconds later, Jordan shuffled in, still dressed in his oversized hand-sewn pajamas. He was 8 but too thin for his age, his curly hair slightly sled from sleep. Despite everything, his dark brown eyes still held that quiet optimism that both inspired and broke Marcus's heart. Jordan climbed onto one of the wobbly kitchen chairs and picked up the toast. He didn't complain. He never did. Thanks, Dad. Marcus sat across from him, watching as his son took slow, careful bites. Big day at school, he asked, forcing his tone to stay light. Jordan nodded. William said we're doing an art project. She said I could draw whatever I want. His eyes brightened. I'm going to draw a big house with a backyard and a swing and a dog. A big one like the ones in those movies. Marcus swallowed the lump forming in his throat. He wanted to promise Jordan that one day they'd have that house, that backyard, that dog. But promises didn't pay rent, and dreams didn't keep the lights on. Instead, he reached over, ruffling his son's hair. Sounds like a masterpiece. Jordan grinned, then took another bite before tilting his head. Dad, yeah, bud, do you think things will get better? Marcus forced to smile. Of course the words felt hollow, but he said them anyway, because if he lost hope, what did Jordan have left? The boy nodded, as if he believed it more than Marcus did. I think so, too. Marcus exhaled slowly, running a hand down on his face. He needed to figure something out fast. The landlord had given him until Friday to come up with at least half of what he owed. That was 2 days. 2 days to find $600, when his pockets barely had 6. His truck, his damn truck, was another problem. The old Ford sat outside like a reminder of better days, its rusted frame barely holding together. The engine had been making a wheezing sound lately, and last night the transmission had slipped on his way home from a gig. If it died on him completely, so did his chances of getting work, but fixing it would cost money. He didn't have. Jordan finished his toast, licking the peanut butter off his fingers before hopping down from his chair. Can I go get my backpack? Marcus nodded. Yeah, go on. As Jordan disappeared into their shared bedroom, Marcus leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He was running out of time, running out of options, and what scared him most was the thought that just maybe, he was also running out of hope. The morning air was crisp as Marcus tightened his coat around his shoulders, his breath visible in the cool autumn breeze. The city always felt different this early, quieter, almost peaceful, if you ignored the distant wail of sirens and the occasion. Watching him with cautious curiosity, "You're nice," she said after a moment. Marcus, a quiet laugh. "You don't even know me, kid." She shrugged, looking out the window. "You didn't leave me." The words hit him harder than they should have. He didn't answer, just kept driving, the weight of them settling deep in his chest. The drive was quiet, except for the steady hum of the old engine and the occasional sniffle from Sophie. Marcus kept his eyes on the road, hands gripping the wheel, his mind racing through the possibilities of what he was about to walk into. Maybe her mother was already out looking for her. Maybe she had just gotten distracted at the store and panicked when she couldn't find Sophie, or maybe his stomach tightened, maybe it was worse than that he didn't know, and he didn't like not knowing. Sophie fidgeted in her seat, her tiny hands gripping the straps of her backpack. Is my mommy going to be mad? She asked, her voice small. Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. I don't think so, kid. She's probably just worried. Sick. Sophie chewed her lip, her gaze dropping to her lap. I didn't mean to get lost, Marcus exhaled, forcing some softness into his voice. I know it happens. The address led them to a neighborhood that looked like a different world from where Marcus lived. The streets were lined with trees. The lawns neatly trimmed, the houses standing tall with their perfectly painted fences and expensive cars parked in the driveways. His truck stuck out here, its rusted edges and faded paint like a scar against something pristine. He slowed in front of a two-story house with white shutters and a stone pathway leading to the front door. Before he could even shift into park, the front door flew open. A woman burst out onto the porch, her dark coat billowing as she ran down the steps. Sophie gasped, her tiny fingers fumbling with the seatbelt as she scrambled to unbuckle herself. Marcus barely had time to put the truck in park before the girl flung the door open and ran toward her mother. The woman fell to her knees, arms wide, catching Sophie in a tight embrace. Oh my God, baby, she choked her, voice shaking. I was so scared. Sophie clung to her, her small frame trembling. I couldn't find you, Mommy. The woman pulled back just enough to cup her daughter's face, pressing frantic kisses to her forehead. I'm here. I'm here. She turned her head, then her gaze locking onto Marcus, and for a second, something flashed across her face. Relief, confusion, then something harder, something wary. She stood slowly, keeping one arm wrapped around Sophie. As she took a hesitant step forward, Marcus recognized the look. Immediately, it was the same look he got when he walked into a store he'd never been in before, the same look some people gave him when he passed them on the sidewalk at night, that moment of hesitation, of calculation, like they weren't sure whether he was a problem or not. His chest tightened, but he kept his expression neutral. He wasn't about to let this woman make him feel like he had done something wrong. I found her outside a grocery store, he said, his voice even she was crying. She had this. He pulled the crumpled piece of paper from his pocket and held it out, tried calling, no answer. The woman hesitated before reaching for it, her fingers brushing against his as she took it. She glanced down, then back up at him. She exhaled sharply, rubbing her free hand over her forehead. I didn't even realize she was gone until I got home. I must lost her in the parking lot while I was putting the bags in the car. I thought she was right behind me. Her voice wavered, and for the first time Marcus saw past the guarded expression. She was shaken. Guilt